today's World Insight, France in the thick of preparations for the Paris Olympics exactly a year from now. So how are these preparations coming along? What can we expect from the post-pandemic Summer Games? And open and inclusive world sports competitions without geopolitics. That's up for discussion with Russian Sports Minister Oleg Latitsyn.
Hello, I'm Tian Wei, and welcome to World Insight. The one-year countdown to the 2024 Paris Olympic Games begins. France's preparations are well underway. On Tuesday, the Olympic torch design was unveiled, a likeness to the Eiffel Tower reflection on the Seine River. Meanwhile, here in China, the 31st summer edition of the FISU World University Games will kick off soon in the Sichuan capital city of Chengdu. And the Hangzhou Asian Games will also be held from September the 23rd to October the 8th. So, how is France gearing up for the Olympics? What are some of the experiences already there that can be shared with the rest of the world, including with China? Let's loop in our panelists. In London, we are joined by Ian Findlay, a sports commentator. In Beijing, Paul Dong, a sports commentator as well from China. Welcome to both of you. The Paris Olympic Games is approaching, and we are 1 year from there. A lot of complexities, though. What's your expectations? Paul?
Well, from Tokyo to Paris, and Paris would at least sound so special to me because we all know that modern Olympics was actually created by a French. And finally now it travels back to the French land. And people are talking about this gonna be a very different edition because the Olympic movement is faced with a lot of urges to reform itself.
As someone that's based in Europe, I'm looking forward to seeing a Summer Olympics in Europe again. And as Paul was saying, with the Olympics being founded, modern Olympics being founded by a Frenchman, it's going to be, I think, a spectacular event. I'm particularly looking forward to the opening ceremony, which will be done down the River Seine in Paris, something that's never been attempted before in a modern Olympic Games. So I think that should be a very spectacular start to the Olympics in a year's time.
One of the reasons why people have a lot of expectations for the Paris Summer Games has something to do with the past 3 years in which both the Tokyo Games and the Beijing Winter Games have been impacted by the COVID-19. Now we seem to be free from that trouble at this moment. So whether Paris is going to give us a new impetus about confidence in Olympic Games, that's a big question mark yet, isn't it, Ian?
There's a lot of excitement. I know that there's been a real demand for tickets. Certainly where I'm based in London, we're a 2-hour train journey away from Paris. So there's going to be a lot of travel across Europe to get to these games. And one of my experiences of being involved in the Olympic Games over the years was the positivity particularly around London 2012, how it brought the city together, it brought international travelers together. And there was just a very, very positive vibe around the whole of London. And I hope that we see that in Paris again and share the best of humanity and sport that an Olympics can bring together.
The slogan for the Paris Olympic Games is Games Wide Open. Of course, it's about inclusiveness. It is also about participation of whether the spectators or those who are interested in sports. How will this theme of Games Wide Open be able to provide at least some kinds of hope about at least being together during the time of the Games? Paul?
Maybe just a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about the geopolitics and some of the other ecology and some of the other challenges, and what new sports should be included and what can be considered to be eliminated. And but now we are beginning to worry about the climate and weather because we're still, I mean, Europe and as well as many other parts of the world are deeply in such extreme weather conditions now. And what if the Olympics commences right now in a year time? And how can we face that? I think, we need to, we still have 1 year to go. We look to the French people who are known to be creative for many decades, but it's all of us, for us to figure out how to face them and deal with the problems.
Lots of hope leading up to the games, in particular about the sport itself and what the athletes will bring to the party. That for me is what I'm most excited about. The geopolitics, everything that's going on. Yes, it is quite a nervous time for the world, but I hope to see the athletes and the sports put on a fantastic show for the spectators and really just bring some joy and let marvelous people do what they do best and shine under the spotlight.
We are seeing, increasing number of sports games after 3 years of pandemic. For example, Paul, you know this very well, that China's Chengdu is now hosting the 31st Universiade. Well, later we're going to see Hangzhou hosting the Asian Games as well. So how do you see the enthusiasm, continued enthusiasm among emerging and developing countries, and now also France, for example, for the Summer Games, for grand sports events?
I mean, we're still in a burgeoning, very early stage of getting people on the grassroots level to get really involved into sports instead of watching their national representatives winning glories on the international stage. So that means for many years ahead, from the Universiade to Asian Games to World Championships to other winter sporting events, we will see that the population getting involved in volunteering and also as well as really participating in skiing, skating, swimming, and even some fencing, shooting will only grow gradually for many years. That will be different from the picture of when you see a major event landing in Europe.
Yeah, from the Winter Games in Beijing to a Universiade ongoing likely very soon, and then the Asian Games, and then the Paris Summer Games, one after another world level grand sports events, that's going to drive a lot of Chinese spectators to the, shall I say, the sports ground to do some sports themselves rather than just being spectators, as put rightly so by Paul earlier. That's likely to be a great sequence of events. Ian.
Yeah, it's fantastic to see after the last 3-4 years these events coming back, and with the Summer University Games starting in round about now, isn't it? I worked at the Winter University Games in Lake Placid back in January. I was unfortunately unavailable to come to China for the Summer Games this year, but I do have a worry about the saturation, constant major events, and how that impacts on broadcasters and sponsors, because every major event is in a way fighting for coverage. But I think from the Chinese point of view, to see these events, hopefully it will bring people to the grassroots, but it is a long road to turn grassroots into a talent pathway to then develop those grassroots participants into elite athletes across a wide range of sports. But it's helpful to see these events. I'm a huge supporter of the University Games. I think it provides a fantastic pathway into, it's already elite sport, but it's a great proving ground for moving up to the Olympic Games. Of course, the Asian Games, the market for the Asian Games is Asia. There will be very little coverage of that, I'm sad to say, outside of Asia. And later on this year as well, there is the Pan American Games. So we've also had a European Games as well back in early June. So lots and lots of games. It's hard for each of those games to to get the coverage that they would want to deliver for the sponsors.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
ultimately the big one is always the Olympic Games. That is what's going to
Right.
generate the most coverage, the most interest.
How do you see, this sequence of familiarity and also participation in sports games, both regional and international? How has that changed China's or Chinese mindset and the way we approach others, hopefully, for better?
If you imagine yourself to be a young athlete just coming to Beijing for the Winter Games for the very first time in China, and you have no old stories to compare against, like the 1990 Asian Games and 2008 Summer Olympics, but people can tell the audience on the spectator side in China, they don't necessarily check all the details about the past games. They just embrace the new ones, and they will care. I mean, people in 2008 would cheer for China to be on top of the medal table, and as many as possible athletes to climb on the platform. And back in 1990, people learned to understand what modern sports were about. But now this younger generation who occupy the majority of all the opinions and influences online, because online influence plays a bigger and bigger role now in terms of covering the sporting event. I think younger people of this generation, they care about now what new faces they want to see in their own city, and they learn from scratch to be an expert in that sport within just a couple of weeks.
Good for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think certainly has. If we look at the new sports coming in for Paris, breakdancing being one of them, which has featured in the Youth Olympics in the past. In addition to the sports that made their debut at Tokyo, such as skateboarding, surfing, sport climbing. To kind of build on Paul's point, these are sports which are perfect for social media, for clipping up. It's they're very now sports. They're lifestyle sports. There's a whole culture that drives these sports, and to see them in the Olympic Games is for some people. They're not so popular, but the sports, the IOC, the games have to evolve, and they have to bring a new generation with them.
Yeah.
The fact that these sports are able to be clipped up and shared so quickly and generate a lot of coverage, and that is where many younger people will be consuming the Olympic Games now. It's not just about the live television coverage; it is about the content that is created around that. Very, very short.
Thank you so much, Paul and Ian, for joining us.